Welcome to the Analytics Power Hour. Analytics topics covered conversationally and sometimes with explicit language. Here are your hosts, Mo, Michael, and Tim.
Hello, this is the Analytics Power Hour, and this is episode 178. A long, long time ago, I can still remember when the dashboards used to make me smile. And I knew if I had a chance that I could make those widgets dance, and maybe there'd be insights for a while. But BigQuery made me shiver with every drill down I delivered. Bad news as the chart stepped downwards, I was verklempt. I can't remember if I spied a data viz that surely lied, but something touched me deep inside the day the dashboard died. And they were singing, bye bye Power BI. I took my Excel to Domo and I don't know why. Them good old boys were using Tableau and Fivetran. Singing, charting graphs till the day that I die. Charting graphs till the day that I die. And if you... Okay, no, we're not going to do it.
That was pretty bad.
All right. Hey, welcome to the show. And Tim, how you doing? You're pretty good on guitar.
I'm afraid people were thinking they're going to do the whole
That's right. It's
song.
like only 9 more minutes, folks. It's
plus
no big
30,
deal.
plus 30, plus 30.
That's right. Just keep hitting it. Mo, welcome back.
Hi. That was the highlight of my week, gotta say.
There you go. So we like to sing, and I'm available for any singing engagements, bar mitzvahs, weddings, whatever you got. I've seen a little sampling of what I can do out there vocally. Just hit us up at our email. No, but we went back in time, and I think, did this come from a listener, Mo? Is this something you were thinking
No,
of?
it's been like burning in my brain for months on end, this topic.
Yeah, we talked about dashboards in episode 2 of the podcast. And then we've definitely covered things, have touched on it, but we've never come back. And honestly, the world has changed dramatically as it pertains to dashboards. So Mo, kick us off here. We're going to spend an episode just talking about what's the new rules, the modern dashboard dilemma. It used to be so much clearer because dashboards really came from not so many places, and now they seem to be sort of spread thin again. I don't know the right way to say it, but Mo, talk about why this came up as a topic for you.
Okay, so I suppose, I don't know, I guess I take for granted that data viz is something that I care about and I think is really important, and I feel like there's lots of people that have completely amazing training on this topic, Tim being one of them, my sister Michelle, Leah Pika. There's all these people that are just so into the topic, and it just, I don't know, my team
of data viz, not of dashboards, just to be.
Yes, but
Okay.
But I think the two are so connected. And I think that if you don't get data viz, you don't understand how and why the way that you build a dashboard matters. And I don't know, it just seems to be something that I think my team kind of don't really give a shit about. And that's not to throw them under the bus, because there's lots of people in the team that do care about how we present information in dashboards. But there's lots of people that don't. And it just keeps churning around with me being like, why is this happening? What's going on? What's with all the tooling changes? What is creating this? I thought we nailed this in episode 2. I thought people got it,
I don't think anyone listened to episode 2, so that's probably the problem, Mo, is that we just didn't, have the listener base.
I question the premise of the. I feel like dashboards get treated as being there's an attempt to make dashboards do a million things that dashboards are the worst possible fucking tool for the job. And frankly, since you'll throw your team under the bus, I will throw aspects of my team where we sell that to a client and it's like, hey, we're going to build some dashboards for you. And guess what? They build a bunch of dashboards, and yeah, data viz is kind of crappy, layout kind of crappy, but that's not the issue. The issue is that they see the dashboard as literally being the be all end all. We've got all this data coming from these different, and I feel like the analytics space, the tools are doing the same thing. Look, we brought in all this data together, and then the next step is, ergo, if you put them all in a dashboard, your stakeholders will be able to self-service and drill down and slice and filter and gain glorious insights. And Tableau, great tool, but it's not going to do that. Power BI, great tool. It's not going to do that. So I feel like there is a conflation of, take like Analysis Workspace in Adobe, which is not a dashboarding tool. It's an analytical interface tool. And in the hands of an analyst or a engaged stakeholder, yes, you can use this to explore your data. But I've literally never seen, and plenty of people will take issue and say, well, I have, and they're kind of full of shit. Dashboards get built that are kind of like, this provides all the access to all the data, and this is the source of your insights. I see dashboards as limited, some degree of filtering, some degree of drill down, great, but they're very best at illustrating performance, measuring performance, and showing you, are you hitting? They are rarely the effective source of insights. But that may be a rant from number 2.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many directions I could go off your soapbox spiel. Yep. So I will pick just one of them, which is that idea, like, and I think we went through this, right? Where we were like, let's build all the dashboards with all the KPIs that matter to people, and people will start going to look at them, because why wouldn't they? They've got the KPIs on there. And they don't. Like, you don't have senior stakeholders being like, oh, I'm going to go check Looker every day. I mean, some of them do, and the ones that we do, I love. But they still don't. They don't. I mean, the idea that you put it somewhere and people just self-serve, like, what are we missing? Because, I mean, you talk about all the tricks of, like, making it someone's homepage, or, like, it auto comes up when they log onto their computer. Like, I feel like we think of everything, but do people just not... Maybe stakeholders shouldn't check dashboards. Maybe that's the moral of the story.
I think as a listener, you could probably tell we get pretty wound up about this topic. But it's funny because I remember I probably had much stronger opinions about dashboards when we first did this. And I think now I actually want the simplest thing. It honestly, like, it still needs to have the right data visualization and sort of the ink to white space ratio and those kinds of things. That's probably more important to me now. But, like, the amount of coverage, I really think people try to cover way too much. And that's why people don't look at them. Like, a very simple, very sparse piece of information. So there's maybe 5 or 6 things you need to know every day, or once a week, or once a month. And I think the other thing is that we used to do this in one-offs, right? And so we'd make one of these, and then we'd make another one of these. And now the tools, like, we've been mentioning, I'm sure we'll mention a lot of them, Looker, Power BI, Tableau, they let you make a bunch of them all together. And so we create or conflate operational reporting, if for lack of a better word, into dashboarding. And then we make 40 dashboards, which are actually just operational reports. But then it's not the same thing, not even close to the same thing. And I think that's the thing is, honestly, I feel like we got to go back and say, hey, this is what a dashboard actually is, and this is what you should actually be using it for. And then there's other places you should do things like, Tim, you mentioned Analysis Workspace in Adobe, which happens to be a thing I love, and actually in Google Analytics 4, there's the Explorer function, which is basically the exact same thing again.
Yeah.
And it's great. But that's not a dashboarding interface. You do not create a dashboard out of that.
Well, but that's where people started there were people who said Data Studio and Analysis Workspace, and I'm like, no, two different things. Like Data Studio, actually much richer visualization capabilities, layout than Analysis Workspace, but not something that you want to try to build the infinite exploration.
Yeah, you can't build a lot of exploration capabilities into it. Yeah.
So getting to that sparse, and it's going to be well over 10 years ago. I did like a 3-part series. I remember because I was trying to get to like, what is the platonic ideal of a dashboard? And I actually got down to where the ideal one would actually show nothing. It would only show the KPIs that were outcome-oriented KPIs, not bullshit operational metrics, not anything, not all the clutter and junk that's easy to pull in, and it matters, but is not what. And it would even only show your KPIs if they were drastically exceeding or underperforming against the target that you set. And the problem is if you say, well, how many of the dashboards actually, the metrics that they're looking at, like to me, a dashboard is should be an at-a-glance view of how am I performing against expectations, against my forecast, against my targets. If you're in finance and saying you're tracking it, that happens much better. In marketing, we skip that step. We don't say, how many orders do I expect to get from this campaign? How many, you name it. We don't say, how many leads am I expecting to get? What is my lead to qualified lead conversion rate expected to be? If we don't say that, but we say just build the dashboard, but then somebody looks at it and they kind of shrug. They're like, what am I supposed to take away from this? It doesn't give me good or bad. We hide behind this, but we need the context, and we need the dashboard to show the why. We need the dashboard to show what it means. Well, shit, you didn't actually sit down and say what you're trying to accomplish. But, and it depends on the timing of the business too. Like trying to look at a dashboard in real time, if the actual response is on more of a weekly or monthly cycle, you may still want a real-time dashboard. So whenever they look at it, the information's current. But that's like the starting point of let's build a dashboard and let's pull in what data. It drives me insane.
Do you know I've had people build a dashboard that have had a Jira ticket created for them, and they built the dashboard and delivered it to the stakeholder without ever having a single conversation with them. That to me is a broken process. Like that to me is like,
I mean, so now I'll get off my maybe puritanical high. If that I think maybe, and Michael, you kind of touched on this as well, the ease of building them. If somebody says, can I get my, top pages and kind of how they convert, and I'd also like to see this, and you look at it, you're like, okay, you're just trying to get an understanding of what channels and what pages, and you know what? I can kind of consolidate those into something that fits on one page, and that's the easiest mechanism. I mean, I know actually when I started at Search Discovery, you were still there, Mike, there was a monthly report that got built in Data Studio for a client. It's basically like a 3 to 6 page Data Studio report. And it would get kind of referred to as a dashboard, but it was kind of, there were many issues with the way that was kind of framed, but I think I want to throw a few different visualizations together, even if I'm doing an analysis and I'm doing it in Power BI and I've got all my data pulled in, and maybe I even want to be able to refresh it periodically, or I want to provide that. Great, but don't call that like a dashboard, because I think, Mo, to your point, the dashboard implies, this is every time I get in my car, I'm looking at the dashboard. Every time I'm flying the plane, I'm looking at my dashboard. Well, if you're running your business, then what do you really need to see, every time? Whew. I'm on a tear.
Let's take a brief pause for a word about our sponsor, ObservePoint, a company that offers data professionals tools that give them confidence in their data and insights. Provide a personal anecdote about a time you didn't have confidence in an insight. Tim, do you have such a personal anecdote?
I'm perpetually racked with self-doubt. Does that count?
I don't think so.
Oh. So there was a time last year, here's one. There was a time last year when a client's platform, this was not ObservePoint, mind you, but they spit out that a minor change on a non-e-commerce site would result in $8 million of incremental revenue annually. That was laughable, but it didn't stop the Tools account team from putting that in a deck for the client.
Eek, that sounds like a disaster.
Yeah, it was.
Well, I don't think ObservePoint can necessarily solve all types of analytical silliness, but they can automatically audit your whole website for data collection issues on an ongoing basis, testing your most important pages and user paths for functionality and proper tagging.
And the platform can also alert you immediately when something goes wrong, as well as track the results of their checks over time. So you can see if you're hitting your data quality targets.
So if now is the time for you to get serious about data quality on your site, and it is, head over to observepoint.com/analyticspowerhour to learn more about ObservePoint's full data governance capabilities. All right, let's get back to the show.
So Tim, I think maybe we're approaching this topic a little bit differently, or like you obviously have some bugbears that are unique. I think one of the things that I can't kind of reconcile in my head is about the tooling. So a big part of the problem I'm facing is that I guess people are not using good data viz practices when they're building dashboards. And that's the thing that's frustrating me. And I wonder how much the tooling is responsible for that and how much the analyst is responsible for that, because some of the problems are that the newer tools, like Mode has been around a while, but it's very crass. And then like there's Looker, which, I mean, I do love Looker, but it has some serious limitations when it comes to data viz. Even maybe a little bit Data Studio, although it has improved a lot. And then there's like open source, like Superset. So of course the functionality is degraded versus like a Tableau that's been around forever. And sometimes I wonder if the tools are not advanced enough in the features that make good data viz easier on the analyst, or if the analyst is just being lazy and not trying to work with a newer tool to present things in the best way possible.
I have thoughts on that too.
Surprising.
I think Tableau sort of set a very high bar, and I am not a Tableau user. I've become a little bit more of a Power BI user, and I think Power BI has done a good job of chasing Tableau. But I remember years ago, Leah Pica, you mentioned her earlier, she did a blog post because she was using Domo, and it was called like how to make a brain-friendly bar chart in Domo. And that was her whole blog post, was going through like, here's the defaults, and here's all the stuff you should tweak, and here's the stuff you just can't fix. And that was, I think she was expressing a little frustration. I wound up taking that and saying, okay, let me do the same exercise in R. Granted, I don't know that you want to be hand coding your charts, but it is kind of a benefit of using, if you're coding it, I can kind of match, I'm going to say, the flexibility of Excel. Like, how the hell did Excel manage to nail the ability to really do things with a lot of flexibility? And many of these other tools have just, and I get it, they're having to like program the widgets. They're using little visualization plugins. They're using open source within their open source package. But when you say that, no, I want to change the formatting of that number. No, I want to lighten up these grid lines, but leave this dark. And you're stuck. I want to tweak this. I want to put a label in this one spot, and they don't, because I think that is those platforms have kind of fetishized the pulling the data together and doing a slick demo over actually recognizing, to Tableau's credit, bringing Stephen Few on and saying, this really matters. Help us, coach us. Yeah, and you can still do crap stuff with Tableau, but Tableau has that flexibility. Power BI has a lot of flexibility, but it's frustrated me still a little bit.
But maybe it is a shared responsibility in terms of the failure, right? Because one of my sources of frustration is like, and I really do apologize to my team because it's not everyone, but we have the best practices for code reviews and standardization across our programming. Like, it is phenomenal. We did the same thing. So we have a SQL style guide. We did a dashboard style guide. I actually created it, big shock, and a peer review of dashboarding. No one does it. And this is in a team where code reviews are ingrained as something you do. But when it comes to best practice of data viz on dashboards and like the guidelines we should use and dashboard reviews, people are like, like, is it that important? I built the dashboard, I churned it out. And it kills me. It really kills me.
It's the same thing. It's sort of like when people make a product, they think obsessively about who's going to use that product every day and what it's going to be like. And I think it's that mentality we have to sort of embrace when we're building something for people to consume as a dashboard or some kind of reusable piece of data information. We have to obsess about how it's being used. What do you do with it? When do you open it? How often do you look at it? Like, even in the way that I work now, I go back and look at dashboards as something we should come back and look at as we refine our approach, because there's some stuff that we're like, hey, you know what? We are never talking about this section of this dashboard ever. Let's like take this out or do it a different way. Like, let's swap it out. Like, everybody still looks at this, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the world's prettiest thing as long as it's useful. I know that's where Tim and I kind of diverge, because I learned a lot of dashboarding at a time where like my entire team demanded all the data in tables, and it's like, no, but it is what it is, right? And at the same time, like, that's what I feel like
they're getting it in tables, or they're getting shit visualizations. Yeah, they're saying give it to me in tables so I can take it and pull it out.
Listen, I'm totally on the same page with you in terms of like what makes a great data visualization, and certainly as the quintessential analyst, I would defer to you on data visualization questions. I mean, part of why I wanted you to come to Search Discovery in the first place was to elevate the level of what the work that we were doing, and you did. So I'm a genius, really. When it comes to, I can't do it. Get Tim Wilson in here. But that's the thing I think that is missing a lot of times. Like, to your point, Mo, is sort of like, oh, it's just get it out, get it done. It's like, no, actually, it's sort of like that should be something you craft really, really. Like, I just feel like we don't put enough work into them. Is probably what I would say is the biggest thing I feel like is a problem.
Well, but I think there's two, and I mean, to be clear, I've done a CXL course on data visualization, data storytelling. I've got multiple clients that I've delivered it to. I have like a 20-part modularized thing internally, so
like I
might have a few thoughts.
Yeah,
and having presented on it, it's to your point, Mo, that if people don't believe that it matters, and so I've gotten to where I pretty much refuse to start with these are data visualization best practices. I start with, let's talk through why it matters. And it kind of comes down, what I typically do is I wind up talking through, and this, almost all of this came from Stephen Few's Information Dashboard Design, although I will now, Storytelling with Data by Colton Affleck is my hands down, if anybody will read a book on data visualization, that's the one to read. But like Few talks about the three types of memory, the iconic memory, short-term memory, and long-term memory. And the whole Miller's Law with short-term memory is the human brain can only hold 7 plus or minus 2 chunks of information in their brain. So if you're building anything, a dashboard or a slide or a report, where you're saying this is an engineering challenge to get all the information represented, the short-term memory, which is where the processing happens, can't take in nearly as much as you think. So that's like point one. Point two is the curse of knowledge, where when the analyst is looking at the data and it makes sense to them, they're super familiar with it. So we can talk through the tapping game and other ways that the curse of knowledge is terrible. And then the third is this idea of cognitive load, where what I love to do, and this is in Few's book, I think he may have actually pulled it from somewhere, is this kind of, it's just like 4 or 5 rows of numbers. So it's data, but in kind of an artificial way, and they're kind of gray numbers just randomly covered. And if I put that slide up and say, count the number of 5s that are in this, And take your time. There's no trick here. Just count the number of 5s. Okay, what do you think? I think the right number is like 6. And then we flip to the next slide. Exact same thing, except the number of 5s. Every 5 is a certain color, a different color, and it's bold. And I say, now how many 5s are there here? And like you instantaneously can see that there are like 6. And then I point out, how many pixels did I actually change on this display? Like very, very few. This was an incredibly subtle difference that I made, but your brain had a wildly easier effort when it comes to interpreting it. And then I tend to say that is experiencing cognitive load. Like you literally just, and if you're not thinking about that when you're producing your data visualizations, you are doing the difference of that. And then I walk through other examples are kind of ripped off from Stephen Few. And then Michael, this will be my second, the other point when people say, why do I need to put the time into it? I think there's another fallacy. People tell me like, how do you took that chart that I've been laboring over and you in like 10 minutes made it so much better. Like, that's amazing. I'm like, well, guess what? I've done that 1,000 fucking times. And you know what? It took me a long time. And so you kind of have to build up that muscle. And guess what? When I produce a chart, my starting point is much better. So if you believe that it's important, and then you say, I don't have the time to do it. Well, you got to make the time because you got to build the muscle and you've got to learn. And then it gets to where it's not taking you any more time. And I feel like we don't recognize that either. If they never start practicing, they say, I don't have time to do it.
Yeah, and I think that's a really...
I'm gonna take a break. You guys just talk amongst yourselves.
That's a really good point because you're absolutely right. The more you do it, the more you practice, the less time it'll take. I mean, take the time to like do a lot of communication back and forth between the users and you. So take the time to refine the dashboard over time as well. But your point is really good, which is, yeah.
That wasn't what I was saying.
No.
That's a good point, just not really.
I'm amending my point slightly to more adhere to yours, Tim, is what I'm doing.
That's fair.
Okay,
what about the tool, though? Because one of the things that I find is a barrier, for example, I had this like weird nuanced example where I think the date format should be the same on all of our fucking dashboards because it makes it easy for someone to understand when they're going from one dashboard to another, one graph to another. Very easy. If all analysts just use the same date format, it is simple, right? But
and as long as it's not the American format, which is just stupid in the
month, day, year.
Why? Yeah.
Oh,
sorry.
I quite like day, year, because I feel like that. I don't know why. Anyway, that's my personal preference.
That'll screw the Americans. So I do year, month, day, because then even the Americans don't get confused. Yeah, okay. But carry on.
Well, anyway, the tool that we use last time I checked, you have to go in every single graph and change that. You can't set like default all graphs to this date setting, right? And I see that as a massive barrier to the team because I get it, right? It's a pain in the ass changing out in every graph that you ever build for every dashboard. And we do have hundreds of dashboards. Whether that is right or wrong is another discussion point. And so I do wonder, I don't want to, it's not about pointing fingers, but it's like you talk about an analyst taking time to do things right. Well, in this case, like, is that up to the analyst, or do you think that the tools need to evolve and understand the requirements of analysts better so that they build those features more quickly?
Well, I'm leery about throwing the tools under the bus, as you know. I curse every tool. No, that's a great point. And the tools should do better.
Yeah, I agree, Mo. I think there's some anchoring in a dashboard that should be common, like the same date format, probably same location, same thing with the title, and maybe a couple other things that I'm not thinking of right now, but that probably are important, that need to be in the exact same location no matter what you're looking at. It's the same reason we go and look at a style guide to look at how we want to maybe do color schemes and complementary colors, because you want to tie it into markers that connect people with whatever it is they're looking at, right? So it's like, well, you're looking at this is for our company, so it's going to have some of our brand's colors in it. And those kinds of things, I think, make a ton of sense. But yeah, I think the other thing I think is nowadays in the modern dashboarding and data building time that we're in, you don't have just analysts building dashboards. You have engineers building dashboards a bunch of the time too. And I think it's a very different skill set to assemble the data, put it into a view for a dashboard, and then create a visual on top of that. That's a multiple disciplines at play. And I think we're not being really honest with ourselves about a lot of times who we're asking to do what. And I think that shows up in the work a ton.
But I don't think there's an issue with an engineer or a PM.
Oh, no, I'm not saying
building
they
a
can't
dashboard.
do it. It's more
Yeah.
you're asking them to do something that's not common in their experience, right? So they have to learn that skill set just like an analyst does.
One thing we have done, which I think is a really smooth move, is that you do. I
Your team's
personally
not
think
listening anymore. They've all been
right.
like, oh, she's just
they.
nice, too late for a recovery.
We do encourage people. I do think that people should build their own dashboards. Like I have dashboards, like people are like, one's called Mo's cheat sheet because it's like I have to do these monthly numbers. So I build something and then it has like all the graphs that I want and I can just plug it into something for a monthly report. So you want to encourage people to build their own things. It's when those own things get shared out, it starts to become problematic. So what we started to do is in the title, we have like a little image, which is like basically a data analyst certified dashboard. So anyone looking at it knows if a data analyst has QA'd that dashboard or not. And I think that is a really good move because it encourages people to build their own. But if you're a PM and an engineer has suddenly shared a dashboard with you, you can be like, oh, actually, do you mind getting a data analyst? Or I'm going to use these numbers cautiously before checking with a DA, for example. And I really like that as kind of a way to manage that.
All right, let's step aside for the segment that is becoming a fan favorite, and I think we all know why, because it's the Conductrix quiz, so the quizzical query with conundrums for the most advanced people. I don't know, like more like quizzical. Anyway, a quick word about Conductrix. So before we get started, A/B testing vendors a lot of times promise you a silver bullet to make experimentation really easy, but it's just not the truth. It takes a lot of hard work, and you need a technology partner that's willing to admit that that's the case, and they're innovative and forthright about those challenges. And that's where Conductrix steps in. They've been that kind of company for over a decade, helping solve those problems with best-in-class A/B testing, contextual bandits, and predictive targeting. You can actually check them out on their website at conductrix.com. Okay, Mo, are you ready?
Barely.
Here is, you are competing on behalf of listener Anthony Mandelli, who's a really great guy. And if you ever wanted to know something about cryptocurrency, talk to Anthony. He knows everything about it.
Ant-Man.
Yeah. And then, Tim, you are representing listener Tony Altic. So it's a kind of two Tonys, Anthony and Tony. Okay, so there you go. All right, here we go. Mo and Tim are again quietly chatting, drinking tea. I find it interesting they think you two just sit around drinking tea calmly. Mo is enjoying a robust English breakfast. And Tim sipping a smoky Lapsang Souchong. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but this is important to the question.
Is it?
No, it's not.
Okay.
Again, I somehow am always sort of the perplexed person barging into the room. So I will calmly walk into the room with a calm and healthy demeanor on my face. That's not how it was written at all. I'm supposed to be super panicked, but you just go with it. My client wants an opinion if they should offer free shipping. The costs only make sense for them if less than 12% of the shipments weigh more than 20 pounds. The average, the mean shipping weight is 14 pounds with a standard deviation of 2 pounds. So do you get those numbers? 12%?
No.
Okay.
Wait, yeah. Say that.
Yep.
Less than 12% would have to be.
Less than 12% weigh more than 20 pounds. Yep. Mean shipping weight is 14, standard deviation of 2. Okay. I told them to go ahead with the free shipping because less than 1% of the packages will be over 20 pounds. I was assuming that the weight of the shipments was close to normally distributed. Oh, I'm supposed to say that in a panicked voice. I'm not going to say that in a panicked voice. The problem is, I just found out that the distribution doesn't look normal at all.
Oh, come on.
It is symmetrical, and it looks like the data is multimodal, with multiple clusters of packages of similar weights that aren't close to the average weight. I have no idea how many packages are going to be heavier than 20 pounds. Now, here's where the story gets interesting. Both Tim and Mo put down their teacups, do a quick mental calculation, and say simultaneously, "Don't worry about it." Me, Michael, mystified as usual. "How can you be sure?" They look up and smile at one another and say, and this is the question, what did Mo and Tim say at that moment? Was it A, Gauss-Markov? Was it B, Chebyshev's inequality? C, Kramer-Rao bound? D, Jensen's inequality? Or E, Lipschitz continuity?
You want to run through those one more time? It's
Yeah.
not going to help me.
A, Gauss-Markov.
Gauss-Markov.
B, Chebyshev's inequality. It might be Chebyshev's. I don't know. Sounds like a car manufacturer. C, Kramer-Rao bound. D, Jensen's inequality. And E, Lipschitz continuity. I have this other note from Matt Gershoff saying this one is actually insanely useful and every analyst should know it in his opinion. So that's
Do you know,
just a little
okay,
backing
since-
information for you.
I don't want to disparage a sponsor.
Since I have no chance of getting this
I
correct,
feel like he makes these harder because people like it. It's like it just makes it more difficult.
I mean, we could start with how many have I even ever heard of? Not that I can describe any of them.
Wow.
but can we talk about the hilarity that as you were reading that question and I noted down the weights, in my head I wrote down kilos even though I knew you were saying pounds. Is that not problematic in and of itself?
Well, that would definitely, if I had 14 kilos, I would be going over the 20 pounds regularly, yes. But anyway, let's just assume the problem is in kilos for our Australian listeners, or even European listeners.
It would also be helpful if going forward we went back to 4 choices so we limit the amount of incorrect answers that we can give.
Your input will be conveyed to the quiz creator when they hear this episode, probably. All right, so how do we want to proceed? Does someone want to lead out with a guess?
Or do you want to, I mean, can we eliminate any, Tim?
You have to tell me which ones you want to eliminate, though.
I want to eliminate. I am going to dive in and eliminate A.
Gauss-Markov.
Yeah.
All right.
Am I
And
still alive?
you're still alive. So A has been eliminated, Mo. No more Gauss-Markov. Just Chebyshev's inequality, Kramer-Rao bound, Jensen's inequality, or Lipschitz continuity.
I just have
No,
no
don't-
idea. I feel like when I have no chance of getting it right, I don't know. Like, do I just try and pick one as I think it's this based on no rhyme or reason, or do I try and eliminate one? I feel like I should try and eliminate one. That would be better, but
Yeah.
okay.
Eliminate one.
I'm just randomly choosing one to eliminate, which is C.
The
Kramer's.
Kramer-Rao bound. So that's not your guess. It's one you're saying
Yeah,
absolutely
it's
that
not
one
that.
is not the answer.
It's not that.
All right. Kramer-Rao bound is out of there. Now you're down to 3 choices. Look at you,
See,
Q.
and I was feeling like we had 2 inequalities, and I feel like inequality is kind of he didn't say bimodal, he just said multimodal, but it's symmetric. So I feel like it's an inequality one, and I have not heard of either one of those, but I am going to think that it is B or D.
All
so
right.
I'm going to eliminate E.
You're going to eliminate E. Okay. Well, congratulations. I'm just to tell you, you successfully eliminated Lipschitz continuity. So, yeah. Now the choice is basically just between B and
Pressure's
D.
on.
Okay, so I'm going to choose one now.
Okay.
Or you can eliminate one. Either way.
Either way.
No, because there's
I'm
only
gonna
2
choose-
answers
I'm going to
left.
choose one.
This is like the runner-up. This is like when you crown Miss America.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm going to choose D.
Who will be the baby of the year?
She chose D.
Chose D. Okay, so that leaves you with B Tim? Is that
Yep.
is that how you wanted to end up? You guys could flip a coin. All right, so let's talk about our two contestants that you're playing for. So, Tim, you were playing for Tony Altic, and he is a winner because B, Chebyshev's inequality, is the right
Chebyshev's.
answer. Chevy?
Chev.
I don't know.
See, this is where Matt just wants to make you pronounce things
Yeah,
that are hard to pronounce.
exactly. I should probably try to find a little YouTube pronunciation. Anyway, let's just explain briefly because we've heard from our listeners sometimes they'd like a little better explanation. Chebyshev's inequality holds that no more than 1 divided by k to the second of the data will lie k standard deviations from the mean for an arbitrary probability distribution. So, in Michael's case, no more than 11.11% of the packages will be greater than 20 pounds. Chebyshev can be very useful for the analyst to determine worst-case bounds. And there you go. Just plot that on your dashboard next time, everybody. You don't have to remember. All right. That's been the Conductor's Quiz. Always a great time. Thank you, Mo and Tim, for being such great sports. And thank you, Anthony and Tony, for being our contestants. And let's get back to the show.
Back in I think we had Cognos Power Play and Oracle Discover at the time. Mostly it was Excel, basically.
Yeah.
But what we did was we had our team, the BI team, we actually did have a style guide, and we had enough people who were into it. We had kind of a review process, and our contention was we're going to be sharing stuff out in Excel. It is going to look so clearly on brand, and that was, corporate colors, best practices. I mean, we basically did a book group on information dashboard design. Stephen Few's one of his books. And that was the same, we are going to subtly train the organization that if they see one of the things coming, it's going to look like it came from the BI team. And our BI team were the analysts. And if others won't be able to. So it was kind of a similar, and we actually had a buddy system of a review. We had 2 or 3 people who could look at stuff, and that we had templates. I mean, back to your point on the tools, there, even in Excel, there was stuff you could do to set up defaults. It was a little clunky, and somebody got a new machine, you had to go and put a new default .xlt or whatever it was. So it was a kind of a pain in the ass to set up, but it gave everybody that jump forward. That's the flexibility and power of an Excel, and the challenge of some of these other tools where it's nope, it's just, and those may even be features where it's I know you're using, Plotly behind the scenes, and that's a feature in Plotly, but your tool disabled the feature to change that because it caused some other problem with your release, and then you're just stuck. You're this is as close as I can get, and now I gotta either recreate it or copy and paste it if I want it to look actually, good. But I would also, let me just quibble quickly with you build your own dashboards. That's using to me, that's using the vendor's language that they say this is a dashboard.
Yeah.
You're not actually building a dashboard. You're building a set of reference visualizations that will auto refresh that you can then pull in.
Yeah, 100%.
But
that just doesn't roll off the tongue.
Yeah. But I think that's part of it, right? That's the dashboard becomes the catch-all. Yeah, we want people to find efficiency. I've got a coworker now, and she's big Power BI user, and she's look, I built these 20 things. I don't know any given week or month which one of them I'm going to use. I'm going to build them all. I can refresh them all automatically. And then when I go to put this report together, I can look at them all and pull the 2 or 3 that I want. That's just efficiency. It's Power BI, which you call it. I'm blanking on they change their names often enough. It'd be a workspace. I don't know whether that she would call that a dashboard or not, but yeah. End of rant number 47.
Yeah. I mean, it's confusing, and I feel like you're really focused on how that term dashboard is used. So,
words matter, Mo.
Technically,
words matter.
Yeah, I know, but technically,
listen,
right?
Little lady.
Why did we have to sing that whole song at the beginning, Mo, if we're not going to talk about dashboards?
But technically, I mean, what I created is a bunch of tables, right? With gradient colors. Like, that is what it is. But in Looker's tooling, I built it on a dashboard. So,
Yeah.
and that's the thing is, like, that's actually why I like Tableau, because Tableau does have, what do they call, they have some other things that are called like works. I can't remember, but some other things that are not a dashboard, but you can basically build a table on that auto refreshes. And I think that's like a nice add-on. So I'm just kind of wondering in my head, like, how much maybe I need to like reclaim the word dashboard in the organization to start this journey in the right direction. I don't know.
But it's tough if you're using Looker and they use it to refer to a set of functionality. Like, it's going to be an unwinnable thing. Like, if that's what the tool calls it and it says, file new dashboard, and you're like, yeah, but that's not really a dashboard. That's just a Looker. I mean, it is tough. Like,
so don't get me started on mode then. So this is the thing that probably worries me.
Trying to.
But okay, I feel like Tim's going to have a real, I don't know. This I really struggle with. Okay, so query from stakeholder. Why has sign up rate declined? And someone will build a dashboard that has like 30 or 40 things to do with sign up rate. And they will give that dashboard to a stakeholder and not even like, here's why it declined. Just like, here's a dashboard on sign up rate. This will answer all of the questions. Okay, so there are times where someone's been like, hey Mo, a dashboard was built for this 3 years ago. This will answer your question. And then I go look at the dashboard and I'm like, fuck, this actually really was really helpful. It did answer my question. But what pisses me off is that the last time that dashboard was refreshed was 3 years ago. And what happens then? Like, I feel like there is some kind of responsibility for when you build something, if it's not getting refreshed and getting used, it should be like, we got to the stage with Mode where we had thousands of dashboards and no one could find a freaking thing because their search functionality sucked. And it's like, these dashboards just like die in this pile, but no one does anything about it because people are also using them to present analysis, which I have very wary views of.
Yeah, I feel like that before Tim gives us the real answer, I'll give like a middle answer. No, because honestly, Tim, I kind of think you do have all the right answers for most of this stuff. But I agree, Mo. I feel like there's this other layer, which is the way the world has changed. Like, I call it analysis, but maybe that's not appropriate anymore. But it's going in and using the data to take a narrative to people of understanding, right? So the dashboard kind of tells you what question to ask, and the research tells you what the other combining factors that do this, and then what can we do about it, or where should we go from here? And so it sort of becomes a step process, but that's not a dashboard that you use for that. That delivery is some other mechanism. I don't care how people want to deliver it. You could deliver it as a doc. You could deliver it as a deck. I am a consultant, so I'll do a lot of that delivery in, Google Slides or PowerPoint.
Or Canva.
Or Canva. Yeah, no, I've never done it with Canva. But
great charting functionalities.
Already lost your team. You're recovering.
You know what?
Yeah.
I don't think you want to invite Tim into Canva to figure out whether or not he feels like the charting is up to snuff, because that's going to be a scary day for Canva, and we want to stay positive. No. Okay. But the point is like, yeah, don't hand a dashboard over if someone asks a question. Hand over an answer to the question where you've gone and explored the data to give more perspective. Because obviously the question should be coming from the fact that they saw some data or understood some data and it drove a question to them.
I mean, to me, this gets back to the kind of the labeling. So definitely it is not a new problem. That's once somebody's built something and it's automatable, there's zero cost to keep it on.
Yes.
Even if it's sending out an email, a daily email, right? And analysts they're like, I'm done. And nobody stops and says, this has been going out for
I would like to stop
years.
Those emails. Yeah.
And literally people are, can I click on, they don't even click unsubscribe. There's like, yep. Oh, I feel like I'm staying on top of my inbox. I get to delete that every day. But I think a one-time analysis which sometimes would be we're going to iterate a little bit, or we may add some logic. So it definitely is nice to be able to build it in a platform where I can say, I may iterate a few times to really explore this back and forth with my stakeholder. They're like, shoot, I forgot. Could we try that again for like a year ago? Was it the same thing? Like there's value in that and having the tools that are wired up. Or I'm running a campaign. The campaign's running for 3 months. I want to be able to monitor the performance during that 3 months.
But that's the key word, monitor the performance. Monitor. Someone's going to be looking at it.
Well, but then it's like, then the campaign's over. Well, now we got to do the campaign readout. So we want to use the same dashboard. Like it is a problem. There is, I think there is a governance issue. And that's again, an opportunity for tools to say, I mean, my Todoist application, I can go archive stuff. I can archive, projects. And then you know what? If that client comes back, I can go and unarchive it. So that's a good
functionality.
That is a great functionality. Damn, we need a dashboarding PM to listen to this.
Yeah.
Because you don't want it to go away. And you actually, if somebody has a direct link to it, you want it to, I just had this with a coworker. She'd done something and she had this, not a dashboard, now Analytics Workspace. And she sent a deck. Somebody was like, have you done anything like this? She was like, hey, here's this thing. This is maybe what you're looking for. And he was like, well, how exactly was that set up? Like, do you have that workspace? She was like, it's actually linked, on the first slide, there's a link to this analysis workspace. I was like, oh, yeah, Teresa, that's amazing. Like you literally, and she could have named, Analysis Workspace doesn't do a great job at that governance either. Like, where's the place I can go put it to say, as far as I know, no one's ever going to want to look at this again. But if somebody does, I haven't completely killed it. And the usage of it. Well, show me if it's in mode, can I see all the ones that haven't been used?
And give you good metadata for finding it later, Mo. That kind of stuff.
And what about, so it's pretty common practice now, most SQL tools are starting to build in some data viz capabilities. And Tim, you made a point as we were pulling our thoughts for this topic around the blurring of tools and how it could be contributing to the topic. I can see a time and a place where some of the SQL tools start to kind of go further into this territory. And I mean, you have it already, right? Like lots of the data viz tools are now starting to do data prep. And that's becoming a really big, I guess, feature of their product. Is it going to go, do you guys think it's going to go that next step where like SQL tools start to try and become data viz platforms? And like, I'm not going to lie, it kind of scares me.
The answer is yes, and it hurts. Because everyone's doing such a terrible job. And it's mostly because there's so much ground to cover. I sort of have, I don't know the right way to say this, sort of this blanket view of sort of a lot of the startup space in analytics and even data viz just generally, which is might be cool for one or two things, but almost 100% of the time, they haven't thought through the problem set sufficiently to build the things that they need to do to actually solve real problems. And so it's sort of like, okay, that demo is really great and people are buying it just because they're not thinking through the things they actually need to have this tool do to function well. And so we end up with this and this is one of those areas where people there's not enough of Tim Wilson to go around. I'm saying this only because
you've hit your.
Listen, Tim, I'm not trying to be snide. I'm serious. There's a lack of education and a lack of sophistication when it comes to how we integrate data into everyday usage in things like a dashboard so that people can ask good questions of potential vendors that get to the actual ways that data is brought in, understood, and acted on. And the reality is people are very thrown off by like, look at this cool Sankey chart I can just whip up, and it's like, who cares? Sankey charts are terrible. No one should almost use them ever. Like it's It's sort of like, okay, you made a Sankey chart. Now go get me another visualization that shows me something I can do with that data because none of that is going to be worth a damn. And And I think that's probably my biggest complaint. And so, like, there's a million, we're never, if we could sit here for the rest of the show and just name vendors one after the other, you know, and probably come up with ones, like, probably 50 more that none of us have ever heard of before. And they're all doing the same thing, which is they're solving one slice of this, and maybe they're getting that slice really good, but there's the other 95% of the pie chart, see what I did there, that they're totally not addressing. Anyways, okay, I'm going to stop because that's where I struggle.
Well,
and that's where, like, I feel like Tableau, who's been around a really long time, Power BI, who has the benefit of owning Excel and, like, learning all the lessons they've learned from that community over the years. And actually, I like Looker too, although I feel like Looker has a little bit of gaps in this regard, in that they don't let you organize the information the way I'd like to see it organized, but it's very powerful.
I disagree with that. I think the one thing
I'd like
do
more
love,
flexibility. I don't want to get into the details of the product
Yeah.
as much. I like it too. The point is there's some vendors who are definitely crushing it in the space, and there's more that I'm sure I'm not getting to. But the point is like 95% of them are a complete waste of your time from my perspective.
But one thing I do want to draw attention to is that I think tools like Looker that have thought about how the data is structured before you even build a graph or then put that on a dashboard have probably learned something from like the Tableaus and whatever, which basically were like, throw in any data that you want and we'll find a way to visualize it. I feel like Looker has actually transformed that way of thinking and instead gone, we're going to be really rigid about how you pull your data in and the structure. So they have this thing called LookML, which is like basically kind of its own like mini sequel to how you set up the data before it comes in. And even though it is a right pain in the ass, it was the best thing that ever happened to us because it made us be really thoughtful about every single metric, how it was calculated before we put it into a chart. And that actually is something that maybe is fixing some of the problem. And like, you know, there were issues, I know, in previous iterations with previous teams where like people were making their own calculated metrics and people were doing it incorrectly and there was no way to QA that.
Yeah.
That then got fixed, and then you go in this cycle where they're like, actually, we're going to let you do calculated metrics. And it's like, wait, you fixed that problem really well in your product. And now you're reintroducing it because it's something that people are used to. So,
yeah,
it's
one of the ones I like. I like Looker. So it's the ones I'm definitely down with it.
Well, but I mean, it is a tough challenge, right? The products are trying to do, they have to appeal to the market where the market is. So I think to Michael's point, if I could flip a switch and make the market demand using analytics in a better way, that would help because that would then drive it. So they have to respond to where the market is. And then the other is they're all trying to grow. Half of them are venture funded. How do they grow? To your point, Mo, they go down market and up market, right? They look at they all basically are trying to march towards where the single tool that you want. I mean, Adobe's kind of an extreme, although oddly, Adobe doesn't have a dashboarding solution, right? Like they don't have a...
Love to see them come up with one.
But,
well, maybe I wouldn't. I don't
but
know.
all of them are trying to go like, you know, if Tableau said, no, we're pure visualization, but nope, Tableau started getting into where we're going to hook into the data. We're going to do...
They started pushing down.
Yeah. And so I think it's going to happen. It is kind of nice. Like I'm in with one vendor. It's not a visualization or dashboarding tool where our clients have enough clout at catching that vendor at the right stage that we're saying this is the process that makes the most sense for the market when it comes to managing hypotheses. We can actually help influence the product roadmap, and we have enough scale with our clients who are doing it that they say that makes sense and we're going to listen to you. But we don't run into that with a lot of them, these kind of fly by night, you know, the whippersnappers who are like, I'm going to solve analytics with my tool. It's just, you know, open source stuff I'm going to cobble together. And it takes years. And it is a great point about Microsoft went Excel, Power Pivot, Power BI. Like, yeah, and oh, by the way, they've got Azure. Like they've dealt with really big data. So they actually as much as
You
being a
were
laughing
really
stock
into Power
in many
BI
ways.
now. Like, you're on the train.
Well, I mean, it's give me any tool, I'm going to get into it and play with it and have. But even that, I've managed to run into visualization frustrations with I'm like, really? Like I don't have enough fidelity over the size of that font, which I guess that goes to me, kind of what when you're talking about Looker, I was thinking like, oh, well, that is with R. I love the fact that I can blow through transform the data to be exactly how I want it to be structured to visualize it. And now I'm visualizing it with code, which means I can tweak and I know that is not the answer. The answer for data visual, I mean, people will talk about building shiny dashboards really quickly to meet their clients' needs. And I'm like, that can't be the answer either. That can't, because then it's back to needing engineers. You need coders who can also build a good interactive visualization.
And that's one of the big drawbacks of Looker is you can't build anything without some SQL capabilities, right? You have to have some SQL skills. But you're absolutely right. Like there's layers to these tools, and basically they're BI tools, I guess. And it's sort of like you have the visualization layer, which is sort of where all of the consumers, the people we're going to push this out to, they have no idea what's going on under the surface. But that really matters to the rest of us because of, like, to your point, Mo, some of the things you were talking about with sort of how maybe you can insert a calculated metric and maybe it's not standard, so it's happening a different way over here than it is over there. And you've got to go there. But if you just look across at, like, the visualization, I mean, for a long time, Tableau was, like, the stop. Like, it was the best you could do visually with anybody, and it was just sort of like, but you had to work your way up to like getting your data to the point Tableau could accept it. And so that's what created the opportunity for everybody else. And then Tableau was like, oh, we got to do data prep, so let's move down into that space as well. But yeah, anyway, okay, so we've been just rambling quite a bit and going over, so let's do this.
Ranting?
Ranting, yes. Ranting, because frankly, we're frustrated. We've had enough analytics community, and it's time for you to step up. But here's the things we want you to do. Mo, what's the first thing we want people to do? And you've already mentioned a bunch of things that are really positive, so just remember a couple of those and tell them. Tell people. So
sorry, the first thing that I want people to do with their dashboard.
That's right. To make a better dashboard world out there, what's the one thing, Mo, that you can think of?
I believe coming up with a few standardizations across your dashboard. So like date formatting, for example, like if you have multiple products, use the same blue every time you're presenting data on a specific product. Like a few things so that when people are swapping between dashboards, they don't have to do the cognitive load of like, what color is this? And what does this mean? Like, yeah, a few standardizations.
Nice. Tim, what about you? What's one thing somebody should do to make a better dashboard world out there?
I want them to plan their dashboards and really lock in on a structure that has, category, objective, whatever, with KPIs, and make fewer metrics with richer context around the metrics.
I love it.
Gosh, we didn't even talk about wireframes.
Oh yeah,
I'm a big proponent of wireframes.
Wireframes.
Honestly,
did a deck on that too. Got presentations on that.
Of course you do.
What I would say is basically try to do usability testing on your dashboards. Like actually go talk to the users and see how they're actually using it, what it's going into it, what's not, and then review and refine. All right, what's another? Go, Tim. Another tip. Well, another important thing.
Well, the downside of going and asking them what they want is they will keep adding stuff. So actually, when being very clear that it's not because that is the slippery slope. Oh, can we get it? Like you have it. That's a one-time question. We should not add it to the dashboard every one-time question.
That's very fair. It's not what do you want on the dashboard. It's I want to see how you're using this dashboard. Different question. Yeah. Tim, you have another. We're going to do like 2 or 3 more of these tips just because I feel like if we compress it in, then maybe they'll forgive us for ranting for an hour.
I will say Colton Affleck's Storytelling with Data book is read it. I would say get that. That's a self-educating thing.
Mo, get another one.
I mean, I feel like this is a little bit repetitive, but I'm like, don't build something without talking to your stakeholder. Like, my favorite process is like chat to the stakeholder, build a wireframe, of what they want. And like in Canva, we actually now have a few templates that we've created so that when we're doing a Looker dashboard, we can be like, bam, 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 this is what it's going to look like. QA it with your stakeholder and make sure it's got like what they need. And I agree with Tim, like that's not an opportunity to be like, add this. If anything, it's an opportunity to cull and then build it.
Yeah. Use brand style guides, read information dashboard design by Stephen Few as well, and then take Tim's class. Yep. You have a CXL. It's a CXL course now. Is that the one?
It is a CXL
course. So there you go. That would be my other tip. You actually, seriously, you should take Tim's class because that, if you want to get better, because what I've found is I have some skills they degrade because I don't do this kind of work that often, and so when I need to step back in, I have to revamp it. So I need to go back into the source literature and reread stuff because I like Tim. I don't know how you keep sharp, Tim. That's crazy.
Wait, I've got one more.
Go. Yes.
I've got one more too.
Both of you.
After you build something, take a look at it and see if there are 3 to 5 things you can take off. Because I think when you finished it, you're often just like, okay, I don't need that. Or like this, like rather than what can I add, at the end, say, what can I remove?
I believe chapter 3 of Cole Knaflich's book is remove the clutter. I mean, that there's kind of there's maximizing the data pixel ratio, which I don't know. Michelle always was like, why don't you just pretend your printer's running out of ink, which is actually saying the same thing. Cole says to declutter and that, know the tool, whatever tool you are using, like actually learn how to hack the crap out of it. Cause like you look at Tableau, Power BI,
Data Studio,
Domo, there are
Looker.
people who have been, they all have all sorts of, like people have figured out like when you're like, can I really do this? Can't do it. It's like Google it and then get to where you know all of the, I mean, I've done stuff with Data Studio where I've got like the same metric represented like 3 times kind of layered on top of each other, which hurts the performance a little bit, but actually gives me the context that I want. So that's the other, like a lot of the tools. Yeah. Make sure you really are up against a brick wall, not that you just haven't figured out either tool functionality or a hack to get around the tool limitation.
And then lastly, don't beat yourself up. Just work on the next one, get better. All right.
There you go.
Because that's for me. Like I just have to give myself that because I get stressed about. Kids, think about it, everybody. Like if I create a dashboard and Tim Wilson sees it, you know how much shit I'm going to get? Like it's not even close like the amount of pressure you might feel in your job. Let me just tell you that right now. No, I'm just kidding.
So let me just go ahead and say, because they do listen, Sam, Julie, Neha.
That's right.
I'm sorry, you're doing a great job.
You guys are the real all-stars.
Well, on my team, Arthur's the only one who listens, and I don't think he's part of the problem. So keep up the good work, mate.
Well, I'll give a little special shout out to Hector then.
Oh, I should also say, Ben, you're doing a terrible job. Just 'cause,
Hector, you're doing a great job. Appreciate it. Everything you do, buddy. All right. We've got to start to wrap up. This has actually been really fun. This felt frenetic to me, so we'll have to see how it sounds when we actually come back and listen to it. But I just think it's an area we all have a ton of passion for. It touches our work so deeply, and it matters so much because of all the people who need to use it. So, all right, let's go around the horn and do some last calls. So I think I don't have to explain to you two what the last call is. So since we're guest list this episode, although it sounds like we should have gotten Cole Knaflich now, we'll have to work on that. Okay, Tim, why don't you kick us off with the last call?
Well, I've got a couple options.
Uh-oh. He's reaching for the guitar.
We'll see. We may take this out.
Okay.
Well, when you're sitting there in your mesh bag office chair, talking to some clients on the phone, I'll be at my desk all day with my nose stuck in GA and a cup of Joe to keep myself awake. Test it now on the homepage. Test it now. I know you think that button should be round.
Round.
I can send you some data in the morning. I can send you a dashboard by email. I can send out some insights to your VP. And I won't forget to get credit for the change. I'll stop there.
That
May cut that one
That's
out.
I love
outstanding.
it.
No, I think we're going to do that because I think what we're realizing is that art is a big part of analytics. And Tim, you're an artist. So.
I didn't get to the R and Python references in the second verse.
That's awesome.
When you're sitting back in your brand new Cadillac that you bought with money my improvements made, I'll be in my basement cube with a Red Bull and Hadoop or some R or Python, the swords of my crusade. Co-writing credit to Matt Cohen there, but I actually did have a quick last call that was a causal inference cheat sheet for data scientists. Ooh. I think the for data scientists may not be the best. It basically just gives, if you've gotten into causal inference, which clearly I have a problem with, it really just goes through 4 levels, from an experiment to a statistical experiment to a quasi-experiment to counterfactuals. I don't think it's the super cleanest thing, but it does kind of show where kind of your strength of evidence is. So if you've gotten into trying to wrap your head around why pure experiments are the gold standard and kind of how you start to lose strength of evidence and things get more complicated, that's a cool read.
Nice.
I'm going to write a song about it.
Yeah, I wrote a song about it. Here it goes. All right, Mo, what's your song that you're going to sing?
Oh,
no, I mean your last call.
No one needs to hear that. Mine's really weird. It's got nothing to do with data, but I'm really digging it, and I feel like, I don't know, it's going to be an acquired taste, but the ABC in Australia is like our national broadcasting thing, and there is a woman that I'm totally obsessed with, Annabelle Crabb. Oh God, it nearly escaped me, but I'm a very big fan of Annabelle Crabb. But she's done a TV series called Ms. Represented on the ABC, and I have confirmed by Googling, I think you can watch it overseas, but Ms. Represented is a history about Australian women in politics, and she just nails it. Like, everything Annabelle Crabb does, like, turns to gold. And it's actually available in podcast form too, but I highly recommend the TV series on ABC iView, Ms. Represented. It's just phenomenal history of women in politics. It's one of those shows that you just watch and you're like, damn, she did it. Like, they did it so well. Anyway, I was very into it. Helps.
Very nice. All right. My last call is an article actually I saw, I think, first on the Measure Slack somewhere, and I looked it up and read it. And it's written by a guy by the name of Stephen Finkelstein. I don't know how to pronounce the name because I've never met him. But he wrote this article at the tail end. I think he's doing his Master's of Analytics at Georgia Tech. And he wrote this article about his journey to getting a data science job offer. And he quantified and calculated all the things that did in that process, how many resumes he sent out, what kinds of coding, technical sessions he had to go through, and assignments, and I just thought it was a really well done for anybody in the job market, or thinking about going back to school and getting a master's, or if you're in school right now and you're thinking about how do I get a job. I just thought it was a really practical article, really well written and well researched. So it's called The 100-Hour Journey to Getting a Data Science Job Offer. He said he did get a job. I don't know. I didn't look him up on LinkedIn to see where he ended up working. But anyways, I thought it was just a great read. So great job, Stephen.
I think he's working at Looker, I think.
Oh, is he?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
After all this. You know what's funny? So, Tim, you and I have a former coworker who did go to work for Google. And I reached out to him at one time and was like, hey, I'm doing this Looker project. Do you guys use Looker over there at Google? And they're like, no, we just all use Data Studio. So I was like, what? You own Looker. You're supposed to be. Anyways, it's funny. Not every department at Google is even using Looker. All right. That's my last call. Great job, Stephen. All right. You've probably been listening and saying, Mo, Michael, not you, Tim, but Mo and Michael, you got it all wrong. And here's what you really should be thinking about dashboards. No, but we'd love to hear from you. Do you have great examples? That's one of the things, like sharing great data visualizations, techniques you've used with different tools. Those are great things to share with the community, and they build us all up. So feel free to share. If you share it on the Measure Slack or LinkedIn or on our Twitter, we'll be sure to kind of try to retweet it or like it or whatever we can do to share it out with others too, so we can all gain in our knowledge. All right. Well, no show would be complete without chatting a little bit about our good friend Josh Crowhurst, who is our producer, who also follows in Tim's footsteps in creating data visualizations and dashboards that are extremely high quality, or so I assume. I don't know if I've actually
and I think has gone well past either of our footsteps when it comes to actual musical skill.
No, so. Not even like that's, yeah. We're not.
He's gonna be crying by the time he gets to
quote competing on everything over here. Anyways, we're very thankful,
Josh. I'm sorry your ears are bleeding
for all the talents you bring to the podcast, Josh. Thank you very much. And listen, I know that creating dashboards can be a trying process and be frustrating because not only the stakeholders, but the tools themselves and even our own skill level. But no matter what you do and what you're trying to do with dashboards, just remember, on behalf of Mo and Tim, my two co-hosts, keep analyzing.
Thanks for listening. Let's keep the conversation going with your comments, suggestions, and questions on Twitter at @AnalyticsHour, on the web at analyticshour.io, our LinkedIn group, and the Measure Chat Slack group. Music for the podcast by Josh Crowhurst.
So smart guys wanted to fit in, so they made up a term called analytics. Analytics don't work.
Analytics. Oh my God. What the fuck does that even mean?
A long, long time ago.
Amazing! Oh my God, that was amazing.
I think that was not good at all, though.
You guys have reached your creative peak.
Yep. You know what? I think that is an accurate statement. That's fair. Sort of an end of our rope type situation. It's sort of like, well, what else are we going to do?
You want me to drop it down?
Sure. Well, yeah.
What's drop it down mean? You guys have got this whole music lingo.
Change the key, Mo. Mo, the artists are working here. Okay,
sorry.
So just giving you a hard time.
My old piano chords are not useful here.
I'll let you go because I'll just unwind another stem winder. It'll be longer than American Pie. Rock, flag, and dashboards.